In this exercise, we're going to work on our top stitching. We have two samples here that are listed on the pattern. 1/2 inch OVC 1TS and 1/2 inch OVC 2TS. The TS stands for top stitch. The number indicates how many rows of top stitching. So we can read this as a 1/2 inch overlock closed single top stitch. 1/2 inch overlock closed double top stitch. So we're going to need to cut one of the pattern for each of these. So I've got my fabric. I'm going to lay it out single layer, and I don't have a selvage on this side, so I'm going to have to do the pull test. So pull, I'm getting give. Do the pull, I don't have any give. So this is our straight grain. So I'm going to align my grain line on top of that straight grain, and I'm going to double check underneath, is it really going along the straightest area of the fabric. So once I've got that set in the proper place, I will weight it down, and then I will trace with my pencil. Notice that every time I trace something, my pencil is not straight down, it is actually at an angle, and I'm just kind of butting it up against the edge of the paper. Don't forget to mark your notches. And now I've got one traced. I'm going to move the pattern over, butt it up against my previous line. Weight it if you need to, and trace the second one. Don't forget these notches as well. Alright, so we're done tracing our pattern. Now we can cut this out. So I'm just going to cut out around the largest area. And then I can cut out the other perimeters. And then I'm going to separate the two pieces along that edge that I butted up the pattern to that line. All right. Now let's not forget to clip our notches. Okay. Now I'm actually going to separate those by those notches. So I'm going to my ruler at the notch, draw a separation line for either side, and then I can cut along. This time I decided not to stack everything on top of each other, but rather to cut them out individually. There's no special reason for that, I just chose not to. Okay, now that I've got my two sides of my seams, I'm going to use a marker. I'm going to mark which side I want the face side to be. And then I can put these pieces face to face, and I'll pin them together. Make sure you line up the edges very close, exactly together. And so now we're all ready to sew. So we're going to sew these, both are going to be 1/2 inch seam allowances. We're going to overlock the seam allowances together, closed. And then we'll press it over to one side on the face side, and then we'll do our top stitching at the machine. Okay, I'm ready to sew my 1/2 inch overlock closed single and double top stitch seams. So I have my 2 pairs of fabric here. I'm just going to need one right now. I'm going to sew 2 of these at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Face sides together, my cut edges together. Presser foot up, and I'm going to follow my guide at my 1/2 inch guide just past the needle. Presser foot down. We're going to start with the back stitch. And then we will sew the seam. Get ready to back stitch. Needle all the way up. Presser foot up, remove fabric, and clip your threads. And I'm ready for the second one. Face sides together, cut edges together. Presser foot up along the 1/2 inch line, just past the needle. Presser foot down, needle in, back stitch, sew your seam. Get ready to back stitch, bring that needle up, presser foot up, remove the fabric, and clip your threads. All right, so we have the 2 1/2 inch seams. What we're going to do now is we're going to overlock them closed, and then we will be back at the pressing mat. All right, so I'm ready to overlock my top stitching seams, and remember I have 2 of them. So I have a 1/2 inch overlock closed, and one of these will have a single top stitch on the outside, and the other will have a double top stitch on the outside. So we just need to get these 2 overlocked. So I'm going to do one here. Remember from your previous exercises that you're going to overlock this closed, and then lift up the presser foot, and you'll push the fabric up close to the needle, and the cut edge of your fabric should match the knife. We're not going to cut any of this fabric off. We're just going to clean it up from any of these extra yarns that are fraying off. So we're just going to clean that up. So I'll go ahead and do this really quickly. Now remember, once you get done overlocking this edge, it still needs to measure from your stitching line 1/2 inch to the edge of the fabric. I'll just do the other one really quick. Again, line up that edge with the knife. And there we have 2, and we're ready to go to the press mat and prepare for the top stitching. Okay, let's prepare these seams for top stitching. Remember, these are 1/2 inch overlocked closed seams. And first what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give these a quick press. And I'll show you one at a time what we're going to do. This will be really easy. So what I like to do is I'm just going to open this up. And it doesn't matter which side you press to. I like to make sure this is taut so that that seam on the outside is nice and flat. And then I need to press this to one side. And it doesn't matter which side you press it to. Okay, so now this will be all ready for top stitching. So let's do this other one. Let's maybe do this one another way. So you could also do this. If this is lying flat this way, then you can take one of the layers of the garment and fold it over that seam allowance and just push the fabric away from the seam, and do that with the iron. Either way works fine. Okay, So now we're ready with our 2 top stitching. We're going to do 1 row on one, and then we'll do 2 rows on the other. Okay, so now we're all ready to do our top stitching. I'm going to do a single top stitching on this piece. And what we want to do, we want to top stitch right here, about a 1/16 of an inch away from this folded edge. You could do further if you wanted to do 1/8 of an inch, but I'm going to do right here a 1/16, and that would be really kind of considered an edge stitch. Now, once you put this in the machine, you could put it this way, so you're sewing on this side, or you could flip it around and sew this way. Either way, you're sewing on top of the face side of the fabric, and you're sewing all the way through the seam allowance. So it just depends on which way you like to eye things, with the ridge on this side or with the ridge on this side. So I'm going to do it on this side, and then when I get to the double top stitch, I'll do it the other way. So again, when we do this, we're going to put this underneath the presser foot, kind of line up where you want that needle to be. Sometimes if you're holding the presser foot up, then you can kind of put the needle down to kind of see where on the fabric you would like to line it up. You could also mark here with a pen, and I didn't do that because I want to use my eye, and I want you to get used to using your eye as far as like maybe what a 1/16 is. So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to put this in. I'm going to look underneath here to put that needle in. And again, we're looking for consistency, so we want to make sure that it's the same distance from this ridge here all the way down. So if you're looking for like landmark ideas, if you've got the needle down here where you want that stitch to be, then kind of look at where the fabric is going in underneath this foot area here, and try to keep it pretty consistent with going in the same place under that foot. So I'm going to start off with the back stitch. Again, I'm going to just kind of keep an eye where this fabric is going in under the presser foot here. I'm coming up to the end, so I'm going to get ready to do a back stitch. All right, so there's our single row of top stitching. Now let's get ready for the double row, and I'll show you why I'm doing this way. So we just did it so this is our other piece. Let me show you this, and my seam allowance is under here, so my top stitch is going to go on this side. And previously when I did the single row, I actually did it toward the ridge. It was going in this way. But I'm going to do it this way, and the reason for that is because when I do my second row, I actually want to use that row of stitching as a seam guide on this side of the presser foot. It's just how I feel more comfortable, but also you'll be able to see it in the camera. So what I'm going to do the same thing. This is the ridge, and this is all the seam allowance, so I need to make sure that my stitching goes all the way through. Line this up, and then again, put the needle down where I want that row of stitching to be. Put the presser foot down. I'm going to hold my threads behind. And I'm again going to find my landmark on my presser foot where that ridge is going under the presser foot because we want it to be consistent. I'm going to start off with a back stitch. And then I'm going to consistently sew that seam, watching where it's going under the presser foot. Getting close to the end, so I'm going to get ready to back stitch. Clip threads. And now we've done our single row. That looks pretty consistent. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use this row of stitching as a guideline for the second row, and we're going to put that 1/4 inch away, and the edge of this foot on this side is about 1/4 inch away from the needle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up that stitch line, my stitch line that's right here, to the edge of the presser foot, and this will be my guide for stitching. So I'm going to go ahead and put the needle in. I'm going to start off with a back stitch. And now I'm just going to follow this line, lining that up to the edge of the outside of the presser foot, all the way down. It makes a really nice guide for a 1/4 inch stitch line. And now I'm coming to the end, getting ready to back stitch, and I'm done. Clip all your threads. And there's our double stitch. Looks pretty even all the way down. And where is the single stitch? So there is our single and our double top stitch. We're ready for one final press before assessment.